Hey everyone, this is Moreland bringing you a Amity guide for Black Desert Online. This video will go over the basics of the Amity game as well as an in-depth strategy for getting the most Amity out of each interaction. There will be a table of contents in the description below, so feel free to check that if you want some shortcuts or if you want to jump around the video and find something specific. Let's start off by talking about why you might want to play the Amity minigame. Each time you interact with an NPC, you will see an Amity score down here in the bottom left that has icons around the outside telling you what you can get if you reach, in this case, 400 Amity, 500 Amity, or 1000 Amity. This will vary from NPC to NPC. Sometimes you'll need 100 to unlock a quest, sometimes you'll need 500 to unlock, a rented item or a shop, like in this case. The reason I'm talking to Ronatz in particular is because his Amity shop actually sells Yuria weapons, which I need a bunch of for my failed Yuria enhancements. The prerequisites for talking to an NPC can be seen over here. You can see what their interest status is. In this case, Ronatz wants to talk about citizens of Calpheon, so I need as many citizens of Calpheon topics as I can to be successful at his minigame. There's a bare minimum that you'll need before this button is even available to you. In the case of Ronatz, I believe the minimum is 7. For other NPCs, it can be as low as 4. It just depends on what their Zodiac sign is. Now, if you only have the bare minimum, like if I were to only have 7 out of 18, it probably wouldn't be a good idea for me to talk to Ronatz, because the more topics you have, the more likely you are to be successful in the minigame, just because it gives you more options for what you can play. So be careful playing the game with just the bare minimum. You might just be wasting your energy. It does cost energy to play each time. When you first start off talking to an NPC, it'll cost you 2 energy, and then that will gradually scale up. As you can see right now, it costs me 6 to talk to him at 400. By the time we get up around 1000, it will cost like 15 energy per conversation. So be wary of how much energy you're spending, and if you are doing the Amity shop thing, you'll want to spend your Amity as soon as you get to 500. You won't want to stock it up and go over 1000, because then you'll end up burning more energy in the long run. Let's jump in and talk about the game itself now. These values here, the translations are a little bit strange, but once you know what they mean, it's actually pretty simple. The interest level and the favor level are basically difficulty ratings for this encounter. Interest level governs how likely I am to be successful when I talk about any of these topics, and favor governs how many points I will get when I'm successful. So this is success rate, and this is number of points I get if I am successful. The premise here is that I'm going to be putting, in this case, 7 different topics of conversation, and the better job I do of picking my topics, the more interest I can generate, the more favor I can accumulate when talking to the NPC. Now, an interest level of 62 and a favor level of 54 are very high. As you can see, if we mouse over our topics also have an interest and a favor level. We don't really need to know the raw interest and favor values of our topics. What we're more interested in is the interaction effect right below there, where you see sparking interest and interest 0 to 0. What that's telling you is the rate of success for this topic, which would be 56%, and that's just being calculated by the NPC's interest of 35 getting divided into the Ronatz's interest level of 62 to get us 56%. Again, you don't need to really worry about the raw values or the calculations, since the game does the calculations for you, so just pay attention to the values under interaction effect, and that'll tell you what you need to know. So we've got the success rate of 56 for sparking interest, and then the interest 0 to 0, you should read interest there as favor. What that's really saying is favor 0 to 0. We have the potential to score 0 to 0 favor points from this interaction. 62 and 57 are very high difficulty scores. So we can see, for example, Danielle here, who has a very high favor score of 49 to 85. Even Danielle has a pretty narrow window of how many points to score here, 0 to 28. If we got a lucky roll, like towards 85, then we could still get a lot of points here, but there's a chance that even our best topic will only score 0 this round. 62 and 57 are pretty close to Ronatz's max. He ranges anywhere from about 15 or 20 to about 65 on both of these. If you're interested in the ranges, you can look them up on Black Desert database. But in this case, we have a pretty difficult round ahead of us. Let's talk about why it's difficult and what the point of the minigame is in order to maximize the amount of Amity that we're getting anyways. So each time we play the game, our goal is going to be to get the most accumulated favor possible, because that's how Amity is calculated. It's calculated as a percentage of your accumulated favor. So these interaction results here, the sparking interest and failure to spark interest, are pretty straightforward. That's just how many fails and successes you've had in this conversation. Accumulated favor and max favor are metrics of how many points you're scoring in this round. So maximum favor is just a flat amount. Let's throw some topics up here just to kind of have an example of how many points we could score this round. For the simplicity, for the mathematical simplicity's sake, I'm just going to say each of these is worth 5 favor. So let's pretend like that interest 0 to 0 actually says interest, 5 to 5, or interest 4 to 6, whatever. Let's assume we're getting 4 points, 4 favor out of each of these topics. Now, maximum favor, all we need to do is add those together and get a total. So we would go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. That would be our maximum favor if each of these guys was worth 5 points. Accumulated favor is a little bit more complicated. For accumulated favor, you have a compound addition occurring, so that when you get points earlier in the round, those continue to stack up later in the round. And as a result, your accumulated favor can end up being several times higher than your maximum favor. So for example, I would go 5 plus 5 equals 10, but then for the next round, I would go 10 plus 5 equals 15, and then, 20 plus 15 equals 35, 35 plus 20. So you can see how it continues to kind of stack up and compound by taking the total of the round before instead of the individual from the round before, and adding that on. So when you're trying to get the most accumulated favor possible, which should be your goal every round regardless of the secondary requirement, you want to put your highest scoring topics up front. So in this case, I would want to put Danielle at the very beginning, because Danielle has the potential to get the most amount of points. Now, Danielle only has a 58% success rate. That's going to be true for pretty much all my topics here. 71 is about as high as I'm going to get for success rate here, because his interest difficulty is almost maxed out. So if you start the minigame and you see that 70% is as high as you can go, and your high scoring topics are only in the 50s, honestly at this point I wouldn't even bother to play this round. I would just back out and go back in. But before we do that, I'm going to show you guys combo effects. It's going to be the last thing we need to know before we can play an example round. So I'm going to throw Angela up here. I know she has a favor combo. And you can see these faint blue lines going here that say favor 4 that tag this, this, and this topic. If we read her combo effect, it says after 3 turns, favor will be reduced by 4 for 3 turns. Reducing favor and reducing interest are good, because what that refers to is reducing the NPC's interest or reducing the NPC's favor. And remember, these are difficulty levels, so we want these to be low. So when our combo reduces these, that benefits us. The favor combo is pretty good, because it's going to, after 3 turns, 1, 2, 3, you count the NPC that you start with. So 1, 2, 3. Now these next 3 turns are going to have additional favor. They're going to get additional points. That's very useful. In this case, we would get an extra 12 max favor, which would translate into, like an extra 20-something accumulated favor, depending on how early we put these guys in the conversation. So the favor combo can be pretty useless, or pretty useful. The interest combo, on the other hand, I would say is fairly useless, because the amount of interest that you're getting, like, for example, if we were to get an extra 3 interest right now on one of our topics, let's see. I know I have one over to the left here somewhere. Saint Pehon. After 4 turns, so first of all, after 4 turns is an eternity, so that's already, you know, not very useful. But after 4 turns, finally this kicks in, and we get an extra 3 interest here. Well, that bumps Linziana's success from 16%, or from, you know, whatever it was before, up to 16%. It was probably like 13% before. The amount of interest that you get, since it's calculated as percentage, the bonus is very, very small. And I would recommend you not pay any attention to the interest level combo unless you're just really starved for success and all of your guys are below 80%. Then you can try to do an interest combo. But honestly, if your success rates are that low, you're better off doing what we're about to do and just hitting the escape button, which wastes your energy. I know, very sad, but we're not going to get any Amity out of that anyways. So let's back out, go back in, and see what we get this time. This time we got an interest level of 34. Which is mid-range, pretty good, and a favor level of 18, which is very low. This is going to be an extremely good round for us to get the most amount of favor possible. The requirements at the top of the screen here are, they could be spark interest, fail to spark interest, accumulate favor, max favor, or talk freely. No matter what this requirement is, our strategy is going to be the same, except for failure to spark interest. If we have the failure requirement, we need to purposely put some low percent topics first in order to get those failures out of the way. Other than that, for every other requirement, you want to try to get as most accumulated favor as you can, because the accumulated favor is what translates into your actual Amity score. So again, for this example, our interest level of 34 is kind of in the middle, and our favor difficulty of 18 is very low, so this will be a good round for us. Let's start off by picking some topics that are both high in success and in interest. So Danielle has the potential to get us 31 to 61 Amity, or not Amity, favor. So we'll put Danielle first, followed by Wolfgang, who can get us 37 to 38 points. I know that Brandio here can get us a pretty good score of 27 to 31 in this case, but his success rate is only 85%. Now, when you're trying to decide if that 85% is worth taking the risk, you should consider that previous successful topics will give a boost to the topics ahead of them. And it seems like the longer of a successful streak you have, the more of that success will spill over into the next topic. So let's put maybe a 3 success streak in front of Brandio there. I know that Ario's 100% and can get us a good score, so let's put Ario up. And then let's go back to Brandio. And now that he has a 3 success streak ahead of him, all 3 of these I know are 100% successful. I'm pretty confident that he's going to be 100% successful as well. Just as a rule of thumb, I would say, and this is purely anecdotal, we don't have the math behind this, but as a rule of thumb, I would say that each successful interaction you have beforehand equates to maybe a 10% bonus. So in this case, we might be able to get like a 30% bonus to Brandio's interaction. Take that with a grain of salt. Again, we don't actually have the math behind that. That's just kind of an anecdotal feel based on how much I've played the game. But it does seem like the longer streak you have, the better of a bonus you get. So if you're going to put like a 30% success, like, let's see here, like I think Linziana will probably be about 30% for this one. If I was going to use Linziana, who has a pretty good score of 15 to 54, I could put her at the end and follow it up by a 6-topic success streak. And that 30% would probably get bumped up to, you know, closer to 60, 70, maybe even 80%. It'll definitely get bumped up, but it won't get bumped up to 100. It could still fail. So that's going to be, you know, just a risk you're going to need to calculate based on how many points you can get and how many better topics you have as alternatives. For the most part, you don't want to play too risky because any failures that you get will reset your accumulated favor and your maximum favor. And again, you want the most accumulated favor as possible to get a higher Amity score. So we're going to play pretty safe. We're going to play to spark interest, we're going to play to accumulate favor, and we're going to play to maximize favor. every single time. That's going to be our strategy. So let's see, he's at 94%, that's pretty good. Angela's here at 88%, that'll probably be okay. And then for the last one, we can do something a little risky, maybe Ash Rogue at 60%. Since he'll have so many successful topics before him, then that should be okay. You know what, I'm going to throw a little bit, I'm going to throw Martha here, who I know is at 100%, in front of Ash Rogue. And as long as we don't get really unlucky, we should get a very large score out of this round. So let's watch it happen. So far, so good. You can see the accumulated favor really starts to rack up because of the way that the additions stack on top of each other. So our maximum favor level of 185 is just a total of each of these individual rolls. The accumulated favor is the total rolls that we got continuously stacked again and again as the conversation continues. We got 781 accumulated favor and 79 amity. This is usually about a 10-to-1 ratio, so the amity that you score will be about 10% of the accumulated favor that you get, and then you will get another bonus for doing continuous interaction that is also based on the amity that you gain. So since we gained a lot of amity here, if we do a continuous interaction, then we will get another a pretty good bonus for the next round. When deciding if you want to do a continuous interaction or if you want to exit, you should always make that decision based off these two things and nothing else. If the interest level and the favor of the NPC are too high, then take your amity and run. Don't risk having a bad interaction next time. It's not necessarily even about risk, it's more about just being efficient with your time. You don't want to be playing a bunch of rounds where you're only getting, 5 amity. You want to be playing rounds where you're getting 50 plus amity, especially if you're going for something like a 500 amity shop. So if the interest level and the favor here are, 50 and 55, just skip it and come back in and play another one. Don't waste your time trying to eke out 5 or 10 points from a difficult round. Go ahead and spend the energy and get an easier round. It'll save you the headache in the long run. One caveat to that is that if the interest level here is very, very low, like if his interest level was only 18, I am taking a bit of a risk continuing the interaction, because if I get the failure requirement and all of my topics are at 100% because the success difficulty is so low, I actually might be put in a position where I can't fail, and I'll lose that secondary requirement and lose all the amity that I've gained in previous rounds. So when continuing your interactions, if favor's low, you're good to go. If interest is in the middle, usually, then you're good to go. But if interest is very, very low, you keep in mind you might want to exit and get your amity. You also might want to just go for it and take the risk, since, it's only like a 1 in 5 chance that you'll get the failure requirement. But those are the factors you should consider when doing a continuous interaction or not. In this case, I would normally do a continuous interaction if I were playing the game for real. But I'm going to exit just so I can get a different example to show you guys. So we get our new amity. As you can see, the cost of playing the game went from 6 up to 8. So normally I would jump into the shop here and buy a Yuria. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Show you guys what it looks like. So you lose 200 amity and 90k silver whenever you buy a Yuria from this guy. So now we dropped from 500 amity back down to 300. And let's go back in and have another conversation. Okay, so this is going to be a good example. In this case, we have an interest level of 24, which is very low, but a favor level of 50, which is very high. So we're going to have high success rates, but low scores. So in this case, topics like Fidelis that even Fidelis is too low to score. So we're going to have to play, let's see, maybe Ash Rogue? Ash Rogue, are you going to get us some points? Okay, so Ash Rogue, who's normally a lower percentage. I think last round he was 50-60%. This time his percentage is higher, 83, since the interest difficulty is lower. But he's only going to score us 0 to 11 points. So let's open up as we did last time with Danielle. Danielle's still going to be strong, 0 to 35 points. Let's also open up with Wolfgang. Wolfgang will get us a guaranteed 5 to 6. And then let's roll the dice here a bit on Ash Rogue and get somewhere between that 0 and 11. The 83% will probably be fine since we have a 2 streak going ahead of him. From here on out, though, it's going to be really difficult. As you can see, all of these say 0 to 0 for the amount of favor we can score. Even though they're 100%, we can't score any points. You will get a minimum 1 point, even if you score a 0 favor topic. But yeah, it looks like that's what we're going to have to settle for. So let's throw some 100% up here that we're just going to get 1 point out of each. And then we're going to throw Lindsayana at the very end so that she's bolstered by a really heavy success streak. And maybe her 42% will be boosted high enough so that she'll actually succeed. Let's try it. Alright. So as you can see, if you were watching that happen, what happened there is we got about like 20 or 30 favor in the very beginning, and then our accumulated favor continued to go up by 20 or 30 each round. Instead of compounding and continuing to stack like it normally did, we were only getting 1 or 2 points, probably 1 point out of each of these interactions. So our favor was basically going up by that like kind of flat amount of 30 each time. If we were actually scoring additional points from these guys, then we would have seen the difference there go from, you know, 30 to 60 to 100 to 200. Like, it would have jumped much more quickly. But since all of our points were up front and then we only got flat gains later on, we had a bit of a plateau there. But we still got a good amount of Amity out of that one. We got 20, which is not bad. If I were playing this on my own, I would probably do a continuous interaction. Why not? I could probably eke, you know, another 20 or Amity or so out of each one of these. I would also get the additional continuous interaction bonus. So if I had 3 successful rounds at 20 Amity each, with the continuous interaction effect on top of that, it'd probably score me, you know, maybe 100, 120 total Amity at the end. But we're going to exit again so that I can get you guys one more example. Let's see what comes up for example number 3. Alright, just what I was hoping for. We got the failure requirement. Perfect. So the failure requirement is the exception to the rule here. Remember, normally our strategy is to go for as much accumulated favor as possible, except for when we get the failure requirement. Now, we need to fail to spark Ronatz's interest 2 times. So in this case, instead of having a flowery cascade of eloquence that gets us the most amount of favor possible, we need to totally just botch the start of this conversation and get those failures out of the way. Once we get those failures out of the way, then we can go back to playing the game like normal. Now, something to note, if you get the failure requirement, you might not want to play it at all, especially if it says fail to spark 5 times or 5 consecutive times. It might be worth it to just back out. The reason I don't want to back out this time is because even though I'll get a low Amity score from this round, since I'm going to have my failures up front, I like the fact that his interest is 23 and his favor is 41. Those are pretty good scores. The favor is a little bit high, but these are pretty good scores, and I want to continue and play the next 2 rounds with a different requirement to get more Amity. So I'm going to suck it up and play this difficult round. We got a 4% and a 22%. You never know, that 22% might be successful, so let's throw another low percent topic in there. Lindsayana might be the lowest. Oh no, Marion, you're only 17. Alright, that's good. Since the interest difficulty is low for this one, we don't have a lot of crappy topics, but these 3 are probably crappy enough. So we'll throw them out front, and then we will return to our maximum favor strategy. So in this case, Danielle, Wolfgang. Ash Rogue is 87% this time, so let's use him. And then we'll throw a safe one at the end. Maybe Ario and Sador aren't worth that much. Let's check on Martha. Also not worth that much this round. Alright, well, let's just play for Delis. We'll take a little bit of a risk here. We know for sure that we're not going to get too many points out of this round. And, well, let's see. Delis will get 4 to 6. Brandio will be better here. We'll throw Brandio in there. And in fact, it would technically be better for me to throw Brandio in front of Ash Rogue, since Brandio's 100% and Ash Rogue is not, so he'll benefit from that success. Either way, we won't get a ton of Amity out of this because we're starting off with failures. And see, look, I'm glad that I put that third low topic in here because our 22% Bastion actually succeeded. So, you know, just because you have someone at 20%, don't assume they're going to fail. Sometimes you might need to throw some extra fails in there. But after we got past our initial 3 crappy topics, the 4 that we put afterwards were very successful, and we were able to get 22 Amity. So if I were to continue to play this next round and I didn't get the failure requirement, I could be pretty successful here, probably pull, you know, 50 or 60 Amity out of my next interaction. But that's our third example. That's good enough for now. So let's talk about Amity alts and Zodiac signs. You can see the Zodiac sign here is a black dragon. If I'm going to play a ton of the Amity game with this particular NPC, which I am, it's a good idea for me to make an alt character with the Black Dragon Zodiac sign, because I'll get a little bit of a boost to my Amity with this character if our Zodiac signs are the same. The other benefit of making an Amity alt is that your alts have their own energy pool. So right now I'm at 146 energy total, but my main only has 23 energy available to him. So instead of wasting the energy on my main character, I can actually switch to an alt, and my alt will have a fresh batch of 146 energy to use. So twofold benefit there: 1, the Zodiac sign, and 2, you get the additional energy pool for when you're spending energy over and over again on the minigame. Finally, for those of you who want to see Ronatz's location, I'll go ahead and show you how to find him. It's pretty easy. If you're coming from the northern gate of Calpheon, that's the north entrance right there. So just kind of walk in, hang a left, go past the bank right there, and Ronatz is right here. If you're coming from the south or east part of Calpheon, follow Market Street, the main street in Calpheon with all the stalls, down to the end where it becomes a dark alley. Stop at the alley, turn right, and there you go. It's right there. Some final considerations. Some of you may be wondering, alright, I already got 400 Amity and the Abandoned Land Knowledge still isn't showing up. Or I already got 200 Amity and this quest that I'm looking for still isn't showing up. What's going on? Two things. First of all, when you finish the conversation and you exit back to this screen, it won't show up right away. So exit the interaction with the NPC completely and then talk to him again, and a lot of times your quest or your knowledge topic will pop up. If they still don't pop up after you exit and go back into the interaction, then that means there's a hidden requirement. In the case of hidden requirements for quests, you can look those up on Black Desert Database, which is bddatabase.net. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. So you can look up the quest prerequisites. The prerequisites could be a level requirement, it could be another quest that you need to complete beforehand. Unfortunately, the hidden requirements for the knowledge are much more confusing. I haven't been able to figure out, even using Black Desert Database, how to find the hidden requirements for certain knowledge. For example, I got Ronatz's Amity up to 1,000 earlier, and I still couldn't learn the repairing knowledge from him, and I don't know why. So if any of you guys have an answer to the hidden requirements for knowledge on an NPC, please let me know in the comments. Other than that, I really don't know. It's pretty frustrating that we can't see what the hidden requirements for the knowledge are. But like I said, the hidden requirements for Amity quests, you can generally find those on Black Desert Database. One last thing here, guys. You might thank me for this. When you're doing the Amity minigame a lot, they will loop the same 5-second voice clip over and over and over again while you're playing the game. You'll want to go into your settings, hit the audio tab, and adjust dialogue volume down to 0 in order to spare yourself from descending into complete insanity from hearing the same voice loop thousands of times. You definitely don't want to fall asleep tonight and have dreams of Ronatz's Zean Merchant Guild dialogue just playing through your mind over and over again. So again, go ahead and pop into your settings, hit audio, and adjust that dialogue volume down to 0 if you want to spare yourself that annoyance. That's about it, guys. I want to give a shout out to Dolphy, whose guide for Amity helped me understand, in particular, the accumulated favor and maximum favor calculations. So I'll put a link to Dolphy's Amity written guide in the description. Feel free to check that out if you want to read through it. This is my first Black Desert video, so if you guys liked it, please do, drop a like or subscribe. That would help me out a lot. If you have any more questions about the Amity minigame or Black Desert in general, feel free to drop me a comment or stop by my Twitch channel and go ahead and ask me there. I love answering your guys' questions on the live stream, so feel free to stop by, say hi, and ask any questions about the game in general, and I'll do my best to help out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.